So the tail lights on my G55 2011 were quite faded. I recently got this car, which is in excellent condition, but the tail lights are uncharacteristically looking quite sorry and faded. And it's quite unusual because there's no sun damage on the rear end of the car, which is low kilometers. So I've ordered the new ones to replace these, and this is the right side. The left side, the number is just 1964 at the end, and that part number's later. You can see my son fishing out the new tail light here for the W463. It's interesting that the casings have different part numbers on the back. I don't know if you can get these parts individually. I just ordered the whole units. And they've got everything on them, the seals and even the light bulbs. The only thing they don't have is the little grommet that the cable goes through, and you'll see that. So a substantial difference in appearance on the tail lights after a decade. And frustratingly, they seem to include Torx screws on a whole bunch of Merc parts nowadays compared to the older 80s and 70s stuff that I've typically been tinkering with. So lovely looking plastic there, nice and clear compared to the old faded unit. And this is the right side, or the Australian driver's side, so I really should get some better Torx drivers there, but they did the job. And just taking these ones off with the old 460 behind me. These screws don't actually go in that deep. They're actually only probably about 3 or 4 millimeters of turns before they come out. So just doing the final few throws before the lens comes off pretty easily, leaving the reflector with the bulbs. Now it should be said that these units don't include a reverse light compared to 460s. They're brakes, running lights and indicators, but not tail lights, which is in the rear bumper. So you pull the reflector out there, and there's a little bit of jiggling to do that. It doesn't feel like it wants to come very easily. And then there's 4 wires from the harness running into this. So just before I took them off, I just labeled them with some tape so it didn't cause any craziness. My perception of color is not very good. And the reflectors admittedly in the casing are fine, but I've got entire new units, so I thought I'd just change them all over anyway and give a bit of a clean behind the unit. So I'm just labeling those wires before I pull them off. And they all came off. They're all nice and clean still. There's no mud or water ingress into this. And there's the old and the new reflector. They look much the same because they've obviously been sealed quite well. So 4 Phillips screws are holding in the cassette. Now once removed, it does look similar to the 460 indicator recess. However, it does differ as the 460 has 4 sort of tabs at each corner where the indicator screws into. This 463, however, screws into the panels, and so it doesn't have the tabs. So you pull the grommet out, the 4 wires come through. You want to reuse that grommet because it's not included in the new unit. You can probably order it, I'm sure it's only a few bucks. And there's the old cassette removed. Just give it a bit of a wipe down. The 4 wires then get pushed through, and the grommet from the existing harness is used to seal this off from the elements. And pretty simply, just simply popping that back in there, and the 4 Phillips screws to secure the cassette. Not doing them too tightly or you probably crack the thing. Then we're going to simply hook up the wires as previously. In goes the reflector, and just line it up in the rubber grommet, which might have misaligned itself a small amount. And then the lens goes on to secure the whole unit into the cassette. with the two Torx screws. I was pretty paranoid about cracking the lens by over tightening these, but they certainly look substantially better. Um, from memory, I think they're around 300 something US dollars a side, um, and these were purchased recently in 2022. So you can see the old versus the new, substantially nicer. The old ones weren't cracked, but they were letting the car down. I'm a bit of an originality sort of guy. I don't like tinkering too much and putting newer tail lights in or um, any other stuff. So you can see the old one there looking pretty sorry on the passenger or left side. Sorry, my dress thongs are in the reflection. There's my son getting some footage. So you can see here, right side's done, left side's to be done. You've got hazard lights and indicators on the outer aspect, brake lights and running lights in the inner aspect or medial aspect. So putting the new reflector in, I've jumped the gun here. Then the lens is going back on before securing with the Torx screws. There's the part number for the left side. So just doing those ones up again with the Torx driver. And all done and dusted, literally. So there's the old and the new, which is a nice refreshment for the car. You can see the reverse light there on the left side of the vehicle. It's interesting, the lower edge, which has no sun exposure, looks substantially better than the sun exposed, but that's a big difference. Both lights have been replaced now and my hazards are working and certainly looking the part. Probably one of the few things on this car which is just needed a little bit of a tidy up. And you've got your running lights. There's the reverse light on the left that my wife has just put the car into gear. You can see the running lights in the center, and when you pump the brakes a few times, you'll see that the inner aspects light up further, and that's another job done.